I did talk about how, the increase in the monetary policy rate by the CBN from about 18% to 22.75% has already started impacting in the fintech industry. And we've gotten quite a number of press releases from major fintech industries, or companies rather, talking about how their lending rates have been increased recently, to customers across the world. But how much of an impact will this have on MSMEs and the business space in Nigeria generally? I did say my guest, who was a founder of a fintech company, was going to be joining me. And unfortunately, we have been unable to reach him, but Trust TV's Yusuf Akogu is here to save the day. Hi, Yusuf. Thank you for joining us on the program. Okay. I talked about how, there has been an increase in lending rates by fintech companies. Like I said, we did see, I don't want to call names, but we did see, quite a number of press releases, telling their customers that, okay, we have increased our lending rates, and this is due to the increase in the MPR coming from the CBN. But let's just talk about how much of an impact this will have on businesses. When you hear that, what comes to your mind first?
Well, a whole lot has happened in the last couple of months under this government. We know quite a lot of changes from the beginning of this administration, the taking out of fuel subsidy, and so many other things that have happened, the exchange rate unification, and of course, where the value of Naira is currently. So all of this put together actually impacted negatively on the operational cost of some of these companies. Of course, you talked about the MPR that was raised by over 400 basis points at the last meeting. In fact, the first meeting under Chiamaka, so we saw that it came to me and many others as a surprise, because I was not expecting that huge tightening. I was expecting tightening of 400 basis points. To me, was a very, very huge, from 18% or thereabout to over 22.7%. I think that's the highest we've had so far in terms of our MPR. So you just expect that the cost of borrowing is going to go high, because of course the banks, the commercial banks, will also make adjustment to their own interest rates as well. So all of these things add together is part of the reason why you see that the operational cost of many of these companies is going to go high. The cost of overhead is going to go high. The cost of even obtaining licenses to operate companies or even register companies in a way is also going to move up as well. So all of these things is, if you add them together, in a way you won't blame the fintech company, because they play a very huge role in our economy. So they are also feeling the heat, and indeed they are actually trying to see how they can actually stay in business instead of continue to maintain the old rates that they were used to.
You made a very valid point, Yusuf. Most of the businesses right now are simply just trying to stay afloat. And when you look at how the business space in Nigeria was, even before that MPC meeting, one thing I would say, well, one major problem, businesses have had, micro, small, and medium enterprises, was access to finance, high cost of borrowing. And then it just brings to mind how this will, pose even more difficulties in accessing finance. But what do you make of that in the area of finance specifically?
Well, it's something that we've always talked about as one of the major problems facing businesses in this part of the world: access to finance. And part of the reason is the fact that the lending rate is very, very high. Like you talked about the MPR now being moved to 22.75%. The implication of this now is that the commercial banks will also adjust their rates.
Already, so, I believe they have started
certainly
doing
they have done that. And before now, the least you can actually lend from some of the commercial banks are 27%. All right. So when you're not having a 400 basis point addition, you can imagine what that's going to be. So when you are running a business and you're borrowing from a commercial bank at over 30% interest rate, imagine how you're going to survive in that kind of business. So that is an area that I think government need to actually look at it very well. Government and some key stakeholders in that areas, they need to actually look at it very well and see how that can be addressed, because certainly the small and medium scale enterprises are the backbone of every economy. Go to the US, go to the UK and every other places. The big corporations are there, but the major backbone of the economy are these small business, because you have a lot of people that are involved. With your little funds, you can actually start something, and of course you get that support or leeway from the government. We don't have that here, and I hope that government should look into it and see how they can actually prevail on some of these banks. I think one of the major problems we are also having is the lack of monitoring. no proper supervision of some of these banks. CBN will sit here and issue directives, but how well are your directives being implemented? So some of these the things I think the CBN should look at critically.
You talked about proper monitoring and even support from government. I would like for us to speak specifically about these fintechs because it has become, one of the things that Nigerians have embraced. From the comfort of your home, you can pick up your phone and use mobile money to do 1 or 2 transactions. Taking away the, I wouldn't say importance now, but the priority that banks used to have in the past. How would you say the fintech industry in Nigeria is currently faring?
Well, to me, I think they are not doing so badly, if you ask me. Because they have come to stay.
They definitely have come to stay. We can agree on that.
Because we're actually almost everything is going digital. A lot of things are actually going digital. So, my concern is actually the operating environment. How comfortable is the business environment for some of these companies? We have some locals and, of course, the international fintech company. And I know that the current Minister of Communication and Digital Economy is somebody that is very deep in that sector. He came in with so many initiatives to see how he can make the operating environment very, very conducive for all of these businesses. So I think we should give him some time. He has initiated a lot of reforms in that sector, and I hope with time, with government support, and indeed what the CBN will have to come up with, because I am not really in support of this 400 basis point MPR that is going to impact on many businesses. So with time, we'll see how all of this is on pan, and of course, the overall interest is that the Nigerian people should actually benefit from all of these things. You've
said one thing repeatedly that I have found quite interesting, and that's the fact that you are not exactly in support of the hike in interest rate. I'm quite curious, why particularly are you not in support of that? Because there has been inflationary pressures, and we did hear from the CBN governor that's supposed to nip inflation in the bud.
Absolutely, yes. When the former CBN governor, Mr. Emefiele, was there, he gave so many reasons why he was tightening the MPR. Part of the reason was to control the inflationary pressure, to bring down inflation and all of that. But when you look at it from 2023 down to now, inflation has remained on the upward trajectory, despite the fact that we've tightened MPR from 11 basis points that is where to currently 22.75 basis points. So what that tells you is that that policy has not really worked in controlling inflation. I think we need to start looking at other areas how to address the high inflationary numbers that we are having. I recall when the current governor came on board, one thing he said is that controlling inflation is not just about tightening MPR alone. But I think that in the last couple of months, probably he has listened to IMF and, of course, the World Bank, who have repeatedly saying that we should continue to tighten MPR. And that, in a way, if you look at it, it has not really in any way giving us the desired result that we need. So inflation has remained at nearly 30%, 29 point something as it is right now. So we have not really achieved that desired result.
Well, I do agree with you, especially as you said that, containing or nipping inflation in the bud does not necessarily mean just tightening NPR. Other areas should be addressed as well. But now back to, issues around fintech. Let's talk to, how Nigeria is in the area of innovation, and I should say, I've seen trends such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of those come into play in the fintech space. I do understand as well that there are certain businesses where you don't necessarily even have to have, customer care representatives seated, to attend to customers. And that to me is a very interesting trend that has come into place. But looking at the outlook of fintech in Nigeria and globally as a whole, what comes to your mind? Which of these new trends do you find the most exciting?
Well, generally they are all very exciting. Talk about AI. AI is one technology now that can actually do almost virtually everything, as the case may be. But my fear is that I know this is going to take away a whole lot of human factors from a chain of operations and things like that. But my concern is that with the coming of fintech, you can't deny the fact that the world is is now a global village. You can be in your house wherever you are, and of course, control things. But I think we are doing our own best to embrace it, which I think is okay. But again, we still need a whole lot to do in terms of broadband penetration and so many other things.
Indeed.
Before we can actually get all those things done. So, and I think to me, it's a welcome development. We can't, be far away from the rest of the world. But I also think that we should do it in such a way that I think there should be a whole lot of trainings and public enlightenment for among Nigerians. A lot of people should be encouraged to embrace fintech, take 1 or 2 courses that will, broaden your horizon rather, and of course, give you that necessary orientation that you need to function in that space.
Indeed, the place of education cannot be overemphasized, and we need to see more coming in that area. Thank you, Yusuf Akogu, for chatting with me on today's edition of Business Daily. It was interesting,
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the program Business Daily. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.